Welcome to the Active Marketer Podcast, where we talk about how to design, automate, and scale your business to the next level using sales and marketing automation. You can find out all the tips, tactics, and techniques you need to get more customers and sell more stuff over at theactivemarketer.com. Now, here's your host, Barry Moore.
Welcome to the Active Marketer Podcast, sponsored by theactivemarketer.com. I'm your host, Barry Moore, and this is the podcast for marketers and business owners who want to find out more about sales funnels and marketing automation. This week's episode, we continue on with our payment series. Last week, we were looking at Shopify, which is a hosted solution for that more kind of traditional shopping cart scenario where you've got multiple products you want to put into the cart, and then you want to take all those products to the checkout and check out multiple products all at once. Well, in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about WooCommerce. And WooCommerce, unlike Shopify, is a WordPress plugin. So it plugs into the rest of your WordPress website and allows you to do a similar sort of thing. You know, put multiple products in, one product A, product B, and then go to the checkout. But you can also do other stuff like run subscriptions and digital products as well. So we're going to talk to Jason Kadlec about that. And more importantly, we're going to talk to him about how you can get WooCommerce to talk to ActiveCampaign. So you can be running smart follow-up sequences based on what particular product somebody's bought. So every time somebody buys a product, that becomes a tag inside of ActiveCampaign. You can use that to run post-purchase sequences or cross-sell, upsell sequences and that kind of thing. And that's done using his extension or his plugin called ActiveWoo. So we're going to talk all about that with Jason. But first, before we do that, of course, we have the shameless social proof segment, which is very difficult to say. This week, in the shameless social proof segment, we are going to go to the Australian iTunes store and read out a 5-star review from Simon M. 5 stars, excellent podcast that has helped to demystify the process of marketing automation. Looking forward to future episodes and finding the time to apply these gems myself. Well, thank you very much, Simon. I do appreciate you taking the time to go and leave us a rating and review on iTunes. And if you would like me to read out your rating and review on a future Shameless Social Proof segment, then by all means, head over to iTunes, rate and review the podcast. It also helps drive us up the rankings a little bit, which makes it easier for other business owners and marketers just like you to find this podcast and apply all the gems that we talk about in the show. So really help me out. So we want to head over to iTunes, rate and review the show, and I might be reading your review out next week. All right, I'll be back at the end of the interview, but let's get into this week's episode with Jason Kadlec from ActiveWoo. All right, I'd like to welcome to the show Jason Kadlec from ActiveWoo. Jason, welcome.
Thank you.
I've got a lot of questions from the listeners about ActiveWoo, so that I want to get you on to talk first of all about WooCommerce as a shopping cart solution, and then secondly about what ActiveWoo can do to help you integrate WooCommerce directly with ActiveCampaign. So maybe we just start off with the WooCommerce bit. I used it a while back, but I haven't touched it in years, so I'm not the expert at it in what it can and can't do these days. So maybe for those listeners who aren't terribly familiar, if you give us a little bit of a background on WooCommerce.
Yeah, WooCommerce is the WordPress-based shopping cart. So if you have a WordPress site, for me anyway, it always made the most sense if you're going to use a shopping cart to just use WooCommerce because the two are already inherently and natively integrated with one another. Very similar to WordPress, WooCommerce is WooCommerce is now owned by Automatic, which is the company that owns WordPress. Right. But similar to WordPress, it's an open platform, meaning anybody who wants to can create and extend functionality, the functionality of WooCommerce. So ActiveWoo is a perfect example of that, where WooCommerce publishes how to interact with it, and if you're a developer and you want to extend the functionality of WooCommerce, then you're free to do so, which is awesome because a lot of things that you might want a shopping cart to do, such as integrate with ActiveCampaign, somebody's probably built a plugin to do it or an extension to do it. So in addition to WooCommerce having its own library of extensions, there's also third-party developers like myself who make both free and paid extensions to enhance the functionality of WooCommerce.
And when, back in the day when I was playing with it, it was mostly for the kind of, the traditional kind of shopping cart where it's like you grab product A and you put it in your cart, and you grab product B and product C, and then you go to the checkout. So obviously it's probably still strong at that, but are there other places you could put it into use? Like, if you're selling subscriptions, or, if you want to do one-off, product sales with an upsell or a downsell, is WooCommerce good at that?
It is, and I hesitate to say that because whenever I answer a lot of these questions, I sort of have to answer it either from my perspective or from maybe a listener's perspective. So being a developer, I love it because their documentation is so easy to follow and it's clear. So when anyone asks me, can WooCommerce do this or that? I mean, my instant reaction is always like, yeah, of course it can.
Yeah, sure.
Is it easy to do that? It's easy for me to make it do that. Is it easy for everyone to do it? Subscriptions, certainly. There's a number at least 2 subscriptions, plugins that I'm aware of and have worked with that I find to be really, really simple to set up and make recurring billing really, really simple, and doing all kinds of kind of the fancier recurring billing to just straight up, this is a monthly membership. You buy it and we'll charge you every month, ship something every month, or have a digital style subscription where you get charged every month. So certainly subscriptions is easy. I've done actually the ActiveWoo.com site's kind of an example of how you can kind of create a one-page order form. My site skips the cart page because I'm only selling a single product from a single page. So there's no sense in like adding that to your basket and then going from kind of a basket page to the final checkout page. So there are plugins that do that as well. It's just sort of like the little tricks of making sort of WooCommerce do these different things so that you can, for example, just have a add to cart button somewhere and someone clicks that and you just go directly to a checkout page. It's also possible to create with a plugin like a single product checkout page, so you can have it set up so that you have your store. Someone goes to a product to view a product, and the checkout is right underneath that product details, for example. So again, it is good at putting things in the basket, but in terms of what a lot of marketers want to do is to create these just kind of singular checkout pages where you might have sort of the squeeze page with all the benefits of your product or your offer, and then a big buy button, and someone clicks that buy button and it just goes directly to the checkout page. It is possible to do that with WooCommerce, and it's a smart thing to do if you're creating a sales page like that.
Yeah, so most of the carts we've talked about in the payment series so far have been kind of, the SAM carts or Active Relay or Thrive cart, where it's, you're just kind of selling a single kind of subscription or information type product. So if you wanted to put multiple things in the cart and check out all together, you really don't have that functionality with those other platforms. So, but it's nice that, with Woo, you have the flexibility of doing that if you want, having multiple products in the cart. But if you want to follow the more traditional kind of internet marketing style product straight to the cart and go, you can do that.
Yeah. It's not super obvious of how to do that out of the box. It does take maybe a couple searches on Google to figure out how to do it. I can't even remember off the top of my head if you have to add like one little thing to your themes functions file, or if you have to install like a free plugin to do it. If you were to go to the site and you actually kind of hover your mouse over the add to cart button, you just kind of, to the end of the URL, it's just you add the question mark and then add to cart equals and then the ID of the product.
Right.
And that's sort of this sort of workaround. And that's probably, WooCommerce's greatest benefit, or the thing I love most about it, but also what people might hate about it is that stuff is not so intuitive. It does take a few Googles to be like, how do I just create a button and then skip the cart page that just goes straight to the cart? So many times that's just a simple thing. I just have this one product and I just want to sell this one thing. But really quickly, people often start to get more complicated without realizing it. Well, I want to offer this product, but I want to offer it as a one-time payment or as like a multi-pay with a subscription, or I want to add this product, but I want to create a bundling page where I can create the small, medium, and large offer that contain different things. And sometimes those things are digital and physical. And when you do those things, again, the flexibility, this is what I like about WooCommerce is I find it is easy to create like a product bundle and then you're still adding that cart product bundle. So the same sort of workaround is what you use, where you create a bundled product and then you just add that bundle to the cart. And then that makes it easy if you do have to integrate digital and physical goods together. Yeah,
where those other platforms fall down, like Samcart or whatever, is when it comes to those physical type products. They seem mostly geared toward online, digital, or non-physical type products. But if you have to physically ship something out to somebody, they really seem to fall down in that regard. And I think that's kind of where WooCommerce started its life, was the traditional shopping cart where you're delivering physical goods. And I know too, there's tons of plugins around shipping and taxes and all that kind of stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very deep how much you can configure those things, and you need to run all the different tax rates. I've set up WooCommerce carts where we were selling in the United States and in Canada. That client used ShipStation as the sort of middleware between us and Amazon fulfillments, so fulfilled by Amazon, which was the way to go. We were shipping pallets of the product through the border into Canada, and then selling in Canada, so that our shipping and handling didn't have to be more than the cost of the product itself, right? If we were going to try to ship that from the United States into Canada, if you're doing significant enough volume, it does make more sense to just have somebody like Amazon do the fulfillment for you. You ship the stuff into Canada, and at the border, they basically check to see if your business is in good standing, if you've been paying your various sales tax back to Canada. And so when you're Canadian sales tax, you have your provincial level sales tax, and then there's a couple other things, and it's actually pretty easy to just upload a CSV file. And then again, on Google, you'll find people who've already just published these things, and then you just upload that into WooCommerce, and then you're ready to go in terms of charging sales tax, and then being able to calculate all that stuff and remit that to the Canadian government. Same thing, selling and shipping in the United States. Sometimes you, depending on the state that you're based in, you have to charge state and then also local sales taxes. And so, I'm not a super expert in setting in the bookkeeping and accounting side of that. But if you are selling physical goods and you are using something like Fulfilled by Amazon, then you should definitely check with a bookkeeper or someone who's knows what to do with that information. But you still have to charge that. If you are selling physical goods in the United States, you got to charge sales tax.
Yeah, if you think it's expensive to ship to Canada, have a look at Australia sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure. Fulfilled by Amazon is pretty amazing, though. I mean, you can really just kind of use that, and their fees were very low for what we were shipping. I mean, it goes up and down, but we found it to be a very, very reasonable service, especially if you're already selling that same product through an Amazon store. And if you're not, then it's kind of trivial. If you're going to ship a bunch of inventory into Amazon, then you could just kind of tick a box, and then all of a sudden that product is now available in the Amazon marketplace. So, if someone's searching on Amazon for your product, they didn't search it on Google, they're just in Amazon looking for it, you could still sell it there. You could also sell it from your own site, bundled with digital product. So it's WooCommerce is definitely, if you're going to do physical product and you're already, have a WordPress based site, then to me, WooCommerce is the no-brainer. That's what you should be using.
Yeah, unfortunately, Amazon still doesn't know where Australia is either. So
I didn't know that. They're not based.
It's lonely down here. Okay, so how would you? So talking about that, how would you compare it to the kind of more dedicated shopping platforms like Shopify or BigCommerce or something along those lines?
The experience that I've had with WooCommerce has always been involved with people who are also doing some kind of digital or membership-based fulfillment. And for those reasons, and because of the customizations required, my first major WooCommerce setup was they wanted to use WooCommerce to bundle like ticketing an event, but they needed to acquire a bunch of information about the person as they were kind of selling the tickets. And that level of customization, they wanted it to all be through their site. Perhaps it's available through Shopify, but I'm primarily WordPress developer, and so I tend to look for WordPress based solutions because it's what I know. So in terms of when I had to judge these different platforms against one another, for me, it wasn't so much what's the best platform, but what can we do that's going to make this, happen quickly and affordably. And that's always been, WordPress and WooCommerce for me. That's not necessarily a fact, but I don't, again, because I don't want to come up the learning curve of how would I ever do that on Shopify and then push all that information into something like ActiveCampaign or push all that info into Infusionsoft. So with like something like a Gravity Forms integration with WooCommerce, it was possible to essentially pull in all this information, set tags, and set up various follow-up based on the purchase. And when I kind of was just trying to figure out how to do things, it just seemed like there's a lot more information on how to get that all set up when you look at WooCommerce than Shopify or BigCommerce or anything else.
Yeah, fair enough. You just sparked a little question in my mind there as well. Can you do events? Like, can you sell tickets to events with WooCommerce?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Again, it's all done through various extensions, but one calendar that I'm aware of is called the Tribe Events calendar, and I know they have a WooCommerce ticketing integration that's kind of specific for that, where I think they might even now have like iPhone-based app where you can actually scan people's tickets in, and it's going to let you know if people have arrived or not arrived. Otherwise, you can just kind of sell the ticket as a digital good and tell people to kind of bring their printout with them. There's a lot of different ways you can kind of get around it. But yeah, you can definitely sell tickets. And again, because you could set a limited quantity of you could kind of make it like a physical good with a quantity. There's like it really with WooCommerce, the sky's the limit. Anything you could think of doing, it's worth a quick Google search to see if anyone's already written a plugin or an extension that does that. Because again, with WooCommerce being completely open source, you don't have to necessarily wait for like the people at Shopify or the people at Big Cartel to open up that particular API to make that available. You can either do it or you can hire someone and to just custom build it. Where again, eventually there's gonna be a limitation to what can be done with Shopify or with Big Cartel based on what they're willing to let their APIs do.
Yeah, fair enough. Which is a perfect segue talking about extensions. You came into my circle of awareness via ActiveWoo, and some of the listeners and members using that to interface WooCommerce with ActiveCampaign. So obviously when you're selling your products, you want, post-purchase follow-up sequences and welcome sequences. And if it's some sort of expendable product, you want to get them back to, reorder, et cetera. So interfacing with ActiveCampaign or your marketing automation platform is super important. So maybe you could tell listeners a little bit about ActiveWoo and what's possible with that ActiveWoo extension.
Sure. So the plugin got its start when I actually wanted to migrate a client from a more expensive CRM over to ActiveCampaign. And the basics of what we were doing were the same, the expensive one versus ActiveCampaign, which is that as soon as someone purchases, we want to wait first we wanted to start with kind of an abandoned cart where, and actually the inspiration for the abandoned cart came from wanting to simplify the checkout process down so that when you arrive at the checkout page, all you see is first name, last name, email, and then a continue button. And I like that just because I don't like to see a ton of fields. And that was actually kind of modeled after what Big Cartel does. So her shop had originally been on Big Cartel, then it went to like another platform, and she wanted to just kind of lower costs down and also kind of move the whole site from Big Cartel to WordPress. So, but one of the things she loved about Big Cartel was this kind of like slimmed down checkout process where you start with just first name, last name, email, and you click the next button, and then the rest of the billing and shipping info loads in, just so that you don't kind of have this overwhelm of, I got to fill out all these fields. So with ActiveWoo, if you enable the cart recovery feature, then this will kind of do that to the WooCommerce checkout page, where you'll see sort of step one, your contact information, and then step two, billing and shipping and stuff. So you put in that and you hit continue. What that does is it pushes the contact into ActiveCampaign with some tags. and the tags are built off of the SKU in WooCommerce. Another sync between WooCommerce and a CRM that I've used kind of required you to go in and specify product by product which tags would go into the CRM. And I found that to be kind of cumbersome. If every product has a SKU, why not just use the SKU as the tagging convention? Because most people already have SKUs set up on their products and kind of know what the SKU is just by sight. I chose to use that for ActiveWoo. So whatever's in their basket, they arrive at the checkout page, they put in their name, their email, they hit continue. That contact's now been added into ActiveCampaign with whatever tags are associated to whatever products are in the basket. And then essentially you can use that to then send follow-up emails if they don't complete the purchase within a given amount of time. If the customer completes the purchase, then another set of tags are added again based off the SKU. Also, you can use the product, the product category and the product tags in WooCommerce to basically put the contacts into either different lists or into different follow-ups. So a good example of that would be, let's say that you're selling, like laptops. So someone buys a laptop, but they don't buy a laptop bag. So you could use ActiveCampaign after a bit to send a follow-up to say, hey, we noticed you bought a laptop. Do you want to check out a coupon code on some laptop bags? Right. So you could use the product categories to do that. Right. So if they buy a laptop in any product, like any laptop, you could put in your laptops would probably be in some kind of laptop category. So that laptop category tag would then put that purchaser, the customer, into a follow-up sequence, which then suggests a laptop bag. Would be an example of how you could sort of do that and how ActiveWoo would help that.
So they buy something and you just have an automation in there that says, right, any purchase in category X, we'll look to see if they have tag, product Y. If they don't, then we'll try and upsell them. Is that how it goes?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so you can, there's the sort of amount of rules and stuff you can do is pretty exciting, because in addition to tags, I'm also syncing the total revenue spent and the last date purchased. So you can use those custom fields to do all kinds of different rules. So like, for example, if every time a purchase happens, ActiveWoo has like a default tag. So you can use that default tag to start an automation on every purchase. And that automation could do something like check their total revenue field, check what tags they have or don't have. And then based on that, send different follow-up emails, right? To be more targeted with the follow-up. Or you can also just do that in terms of like, if you wanted to do a mass email at some point, hey, let's find everybody who's bought a laptop, but not a bag, and tell them we've got new laptop bags. Or give me a different product category. I'll come up with a better analogy. But that's the idea, right? If you know in ActiveCampaign what people have purchased, and you know that based on what tags they have or don't have, then you can be a lot more targeted about your marketing.
And so, did you say that there's you install a kind of almost a customer lifetime value field? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, exactly. So you can track the total amount of revenue spent by a customer over the lifetime. And what I did was also create a sort of a backwards sync, because a lot of people who've been using WooCommerce, maybe they've been using it a long time and they've just maybe discovered ActiveCampaign and how much easier it is to use ActiveCampaign versus something like MailChimp or MadMimi to do sort of these different segmentations, or to do like emails that have different content in the email based on what tags you have or don't have. And but they've already got a ton of orders in WooCommerce, so you can go back and resync all those. And in doing so, it will accrue in a custom field the total amount of revenue spent by each customer.
Very cool. And how are you doing that additive total in ActiveCampaign?
It's just a custom field.
The
in and out of it is when the customer is purchasing, an API call happens where we fetch that contact's custom field. If they're an existing contact, if they're not an existing contact, then we just get ready to set the total of the cart into that field. But so as the purchase is happening, we've grabbed their email address, the billing email. So a call goes out to ActiveCampaign and essentially says, hey, does this contact exist? And if that contact does exist, we pull back some custom fields And one of those would be the total revenue field. And then we're going to take that total revenue number, we're going to add the current cart total to it. And then when the tags are pushed, we also push all the custom field data. So in addition to total revenue field, you can optionally also sync the customer's billing address. So again, ActiveCampaign by default starts with just a couple of fields, like for first name, last name, email. But there's actually, unless you're using the CRM part, it doesn't really collect their actually physical mailing address. Yeah. So in ActiveWoo, if you enable that I want to track billing addresses, then ActiveWoo will add custom fields to your ActiveCampaign for billing, street, city, state, country, zip code. And then with purchasing, all that information is going to get synced along with total revenue. And then also ActiveWoo can integrate with the WooCommerce custom checkout fields. So there's an extension for WooCommerce which allows you to add any checkout field you want to your checkout. So let's say that you wanted to have I'll give you an example of where that might be useful. It would be sort of like the order notes. I love stand-up paddle surfing, and I recently ordered a stand-up paddle from a company, and I had to tell them where I wanted the paddle cut. So that could be something where that might be a custom field at the checkout. Where do you want your paddle? Tell us the length and number of inches of where you want your paddle cut or something like that. At the moment, that's also what some people are doing to create a opt-in box. So, you can either just assume that people want to be opted into your newsletter when they make a purchase. Or you could do something like just send an email out, say, hey, thank you so much for making a purchase. You've been added to our newsletter. If you don't want to be on our newsletter, click here to opt out. Different countries have different rules about how you want to approach that. Some countries will require that there is an actual opt-in box. So currently you would add that, like, also tick this box if you want to be added to our newsletter. Otherwise you're sort of only going to be using this for transactional emails. That said, in a pretty soon upcoming version, I'm going to make that just a default where you can check that and not require the extra extension in order to surface a checkbox like, yes, add me to the newsletter, or no, don't add me to the newsletter.
Very cool. That total revenue box, does that update too, like if someone does a refund or a cancel or whatever?
Yeah. So refund syncing is actually not yet built in. Right now it's sort of like it's in drive only. There's no reverse gear. Right. To like unsync those tags if you purchase something and then refund. Do I remove those tags? Do we back out the number? It's a little confusing because WooCommerce does allow for partial refund. So like if you bought 3 products and got refunded for 1 out of the 3,
yeah, of course.
How does that get handled? It gets very complicated very quickly. I've run it by a few of the users of ActiveWoo and kind of polled them on what they would expect and what they want. And so far, everybody's told me that they don't actually use the partial refund, that if someone's going to get refunded, they get refunded all the way. So that's what the plugin will do is it's going in WooCommerce, you can set a status of the order, and the order statuses are things like processing, on hold, complete, refunded, canceled. So in this case, once the order status goes to refunded, then ActiveWoo will assume a total refund, and it's going to. I prefer tags to be additive. I hate removing tags actually, and it's something that just sort of is that's been my experience using CRMs in conjunction with membership sites. That if there's kind of like a tag history, like, oh, they purchased this thing, and then here's the tag. So there's the purchase tag, and then here's the refund tag. You can kind of see from the tags. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what happened. This is the date they purchased. This is the date they refunded, because both tags are present. Yeah. So I probably wouldn't remove any tags, but you'll see the tags of what they purchased, and then those same tags as refunds. And then I would also back out the amount of that purchase from their total revenue.
Yeah, that's cool. The other cool thing I was thinking about when you were talking about the total revenue thing is you could, for those post-purchase automations and stuff, you could also set up lead scoring in there. So every time that total revenue value is, changes, you can or every time there's a purchase or whatever, they get some expiring lead points that expire after whatever 90 days or something. So you could have an instant lead score for who your best customers are, and then that could trigger sending them some sort of coupon special as well. Some really groovy shit you could do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can even just sort your list, right? You can just sort your list by revenue, and then just to figure out where you want to draw the line to say, all right, everyone who's spent over this, gets a free upgrade or whatever you want to do. Sure.
Yeah, but that total revenue that, but with the lead scoring, you could take into account recency as well, so.
Yeah, there's a date of last purchase that's also being created and synced through ActiveWoo. So absolutely, yeah, you can factor recency into there as well, for sure.
Nice. All right, Jason. So if someone wants to get started with WooCommerce, kind of what's the best way, or where's the first place they should go?
Right. So WooCommerce is quote unquote free, but it's inexpensive. But I think it's a far shot to really call it free. You get started for free, and if you only wanted to use like PayPal, and actually, interestingly enough, Amazon Checkout, you could use both PayPal and Amazon Checkout, and then it would be free because you're going to need a payment gateway, right? So WooCommerce is your shopping cart, and not your actual payment gateway, right? So every shopping cart is those two components. The cart meaning organizing your products, setting how much they should cost, whether they should add tax or not add tax, whether they should ship, add shipping or not add shipping, what shipping methods you want to offer, all that kind of stuff. That's the job of your shopping cart, in this case, WooCommerce. Then the second part of every cart is the billing gateway or gateways, which is if you're going to process credit cards, you could use something like Authorize.net, Stripe, or a number of different, merchant gateways that will actually bill the customer's card and then transfer that money, put it into your account, but also send back to the shopping cart, send back to WooCommerce the signal that, this person did make, that we were able to clear the money off their card. So now take them to that next step, which would be a thank you page, or in ActiveWoo's case, it's listening for that payment completed message from the biller. And when that happens, then the sync happens. It kind of waits for the payment complete message to fire. So your next step after installing WooCommerce is going to be to figure out who you want to use to process credit cards. They may also now be offering a free Stripe integration. I'm not 100% sure about that. When I set up ActiveWoo, which also obviously uses WooCommerce, I ended up using a product called Subscriptio, which I got off of Code Canyon because for $17, I got a Stripe integration, which is kind of cheaper than, at the time, WooCommerce was selling, I think, Stripe integration either for $49 or $79. So I chose to just spend $17 and just use that. So Subscriptio is my interface or extension that hooks up my WooCommerce to my Stripe account. And I chose Stripe just because it was very inexpensive and like ridiculously easy to get set up. I just went to stripe.com and just put in my name and details. I don't even think I even talked to a human. I think I was like accepting credit cards that same day.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So that's pretty much it. Like if you're just selling, digital goods, you install your WooCommerce, you figure out what extension you're going to use to accept credit cards, and then you're pretty much done at that point if you're just selling digital products.
Are there any kind of must-have extensions that the new WooCommerce should be aware of?
It really depends on what you're selling. If you're going to sell physical product, then I love the fact that you can. I'm thinking about all the different products I've done. I set up a site for Stand-Up Paddle Board Company, and it was really awesome because they ship really, really big stuff, right? Some of these stand-up paddle boards are like 11 and 12 feet long, and they do ship international. And they have had for years an account with FedEx, and we were able to use the FedEx API. So there's a FedEx extension for WooCommerce, and you basically tell it through WooCommerce. You say, okay, these are the boxes that I have, and these are the size of the products, and then it kind of does the math in the background on the fly. So when someone's putting together from that company, so that would be, let me see if I can remember the domain properly. Give these guys a plug too. They're really cool. A surfboard company out of Santa Barbara. So SUP sports.com. So supsports.com. And so you can, buy a paddle board, your paddle, maybe a surf mat, like whatever kind of stuff you want. And then it's going to figure out, of all the things you just bought, how big a box or how many boxes do you need? And you can kind of like tell it, this product always ships in its own box. These things can be boxed up together. And then it runs that against the FedEx API. And you give it your FedEx account number. So if you have if you've done whatever you need to do to get better shipping rates or whatever your shipping rates are from FedEx, we tested it a bunch. And every single time we did any kind of like combination of products, and then we punched in the same thing directly into their FedEx account, the shipping was always the same. But so it's some kind of shipping plugin.
Very cool. All right, we might wrap it up there, Jason. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing all that killer WooCommerce knowledge with us. The best place for people to reach out to you and find more information about what you do and about ActiveWoo?
ActiveWoo.com. There's a little help link at the bottom. Just should load up a little Zendesk kind of chat thing. So you can just pop that in there and it'll create a ticket for me. I'm happy to answer any additional questions there. Thank you so much.
Awesome. No worries. Thanks so much for coming on, and look forward to seeing you online.
Okay. Thanks, Barry.
All right. We mentioned a lot of stuff in that episode, a lot of links. So if you want to head over to the show notes, you can find those over at theactivemarketer.com/69 for episode 69. And while you're there at theactivemarketer.com, by all means, have a look around, look at the blog, check out the other episodes. Tons of great marketing resources there on how you can put marketing automation to work in your business. We'll see you on next week's episode. In the meantime, get out there and design, automate, and scale your business to the next level with sales and marketing automation. See you, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Active Marketer Podcast. You can find the show notes and all the latest marketing automation news over at theactivemarketer.com.